Hey guys, Chad Hoover, Kayak Bass TV, and today we're going to talk about anglers that have a specific lure that is the staple of how they fish. Now, one guy that has taken one lure to the top of the leaderboard in a number of tournaments and come within striking distance of an Angler of the Year title multiple times while ending up on the podium several times, that's Jason Broach. Jason Broach is a South Carolina native who spent quite a few years in the state of Florida and is now back in South Carolina, but travels the country putting a whole lot of fish in one boat. Let me send it over to Jason Broach and let him tell you about one of his favorite power fishing techniques that puts a lot of fish in the boat and guarantees him to be in the running in every tournament that he fishes.
I'm Jason Broach. I'm from Bluffton, South Carolina, and today I'm going to talk about one of my favorite lures out there, freshwater and saltwater, and that would be a chatterbait. These baits are very versatile. You can fish them fast, slow. You can work them like a jig, bouncing them off the bottom. Weedless, you can throw them in a lot of different types of vegetation. And more importantly, they catch fish no matter where you're at in the country, up on the Great Lakes, down here in Florida, and everywhere in between. My favorite would be the original Z-Man chatterbait. Here I'm holding a jackhammer. I kind of got turned on to those thanks to Cody Milton, Eric Siddiqui, other guys. But you know, that little $4 original Z-Man chatterbait, it'll catch fish no matter where you go. And I've been using it probably since 2008. First time I ever used a chatterbait was on the Chattahoochee River. I went fishing with a couple buddies, just drifting in our kayaks, having a good day. I was throwing a little 1/8 ounce Z-Man chatterbait, and I maybe caught 30 fish, and they caught 2 or 3 fish the whole day. So I fell in love with it that day, and ever since then, it's my #1 go-to bait, no matter what tournament I go to. So the key thing about a chatterbait is it chatters. It produces a lot of vibration. Depending on the type and model of chatterbait you're using, the brand, there's a different type of vibration, different type of wobble, how quick it is to vibrate after you cast it. They really are all effective. It's a matter of, trying them out and figuring out which one you like the most. For me, Z-Man it's kind of #1 in my opinion. Effective though, because you can fish them in so many different scenarios. So if you look at it, you got this big blade. It kind of seems bulky, and just why would you put that on there? Then you get this minnow type profile. Well, big fish eat little fish, and so ultimately what this does is imitate some type of fish. If you use a darker color like a green pumpkin, or black and blue, you could put a crawfish type trailer on it, and then you're trying to imitate either a crawfish, a bluegill, or something like that. A lot of different colors of chatterbaits out there imitate different, forage a bass or other predator species is going to eat. And you can diversify it based on color, where you're fishing, what you want to catch, and what you need to be effective under the conditions you're in. So here on Bienville, there's a lot of, vegetation along the banks and 8 feet of water or less, a lot of hydrilla and things like that. Cool thing about a chatterbait, it is weedless. You can pull it along right above the edge of the grass. You can let it fall in, rip it out, and usually that's what gets you a bite when you're in this type of scenario, is ripping it around vegetation, letting it bounce off logs and things like that. So chatterbaits, you can connect directly to braid, but I love using fluorocarbon leader to help me get that one extra bite no matter where I'm at. For me, it's my common knot I tie for just about everything, just a regular clinch knot. Couple wraps, run it through the hole, back through the hole, and moisten and clinch down and tighten up. And when it comes to fishing these, again, you can do just about anything. You can bounce it off the bottom, you can straight reel it, you can burn it, you can slow roll it. There's almost no wrong way to fish a chatterbait. The main thing is experimenting the day you get out there and figuring out what the fish are going to react to. Sometimes, and if you're fishing around a bridge or something like Lake Gunnersville, you can bounce it off the bottom and get reaction bites. Around here in this vegetation, you can slow roll it over the hydrilla. You can let it fall, rip it out, and get those reaction bites. And another good thing about a chatterbait, or a little tip, is I love to bed fish. So the first set of tournaments coming up in the KBF Trail Series is going to be fun for me. But sometimes a bed fish, they're a little spooky, and for whatever reason they just won't they kind of just ignore soft plastic whenever it's in the bed. You can throw a chatterbait in there, and something about it, the flash from the blade, or just something, it kind of irritates them and ticks them off more than just a subtle soft plastic. So when I'm bed fishing, I do try to experiment. If I'm not getting any reaction to some type of soft plastic, I'll throw a chatterbait in there. And at first they might have that non-reaction stage to them, but eventually they get tired of hearing this vibrate around them. They'll react to it. Sometimes they'll just grab the trailer. But once they start grabbing this, I'll reach back and grab my soft plastic again and get them to inhale that and set the hook and get me a nice 22-inch fish to put on the board. And growing up, I used a lot of spinner baits, but whenever this came out, and I tested it out one of those first times on the Chattahoochee River, I pretty much took all my spinner baits and just got them out of my tackle box, switched them all with chatterbaits. It was something new. The fish had never seen it before. They would really react to it and you'd get a lot more bites than you would on a spinnerbait. Now, it's been over 10 years later since it came out, and it's funny, spinnerbaits can be more effective now than a chatterbait in certain situations. And guys like Jay Wallen, you know, Jay Wallen, Matt Scotch, they like it when guys start talking about only using chatterbaits because they know in their arsenal they still keep spinnerbaits around. But for me, I'm chatterbait or nothing at all. But both are effective. And chatterbait, you know, is still relatively young and it's still catching fish all across the country. So the chatterbait is going to produce a lot more vibration than a spinnerbait. Creates more of a wobble within the bait. Spinnerbait's more subtle. You just have two blades spinning around in a circle versus this. It's chaotic. It's moving around the head of that jig, up and down, sideways, and everything else. So can draw fish from longer distances away based on sound alone, and also the flash you get from the blade. With a spinnerbait, you're mainly relying on flash of the blade and less so of vibration. You're still getting vibration, but not as much as you would with a chatterbait. So you can let it hit the bottom, 2 or 3 bounces off, let it fall, and a lot of times they're going to hit it on the fall, and you just set the hook. Depending on the brand and the model I'm using, I may or may not just set the hook super hard. But yeah, you got a single exposed hook, so when a fish gets in its mouth, you lay the law down with the hook set and you're going to get good penetration within the fish's mouth, versus if you have a hook rigged into a soft plastic, you have to make sure it rips through that soft plastic to go in that fish's mouth, whether that's a swim bait or a Texas rig creature bait. If it's a little bit colder, I'll kind of constantly reel it, but when summertime comes, I'll give it a lot of little pops on the way back. So let it hit the bottom. So there's some grass over there. Give it a nice little jerk out of it, and then just kind of pop, pop. And that popping kind of gives a little bit more chaotic nature to it and makes it look like a dying bait fish or something like that. So one thing about fishing in Florida is, you know, a cold front can really affect that bass's attitude, and typically you get a cold front and the water temperature is already 50 degrees or lower. Those bass become very inactive and hard to get to eat. Days like that, you just fish slow and you concentrate around areas that should have the fish, but you got to be prepared for not a lot of bites and capitalize on the opportunities whenever you do get them.
Is that you, Broach?
There you go. Yeah,
There was a little chatterbait fish. She hit it, bouncing it off the bottom. Fat little belly, eating shad, so that chatterbait imitation, you know, it did its job, imitating that bait fish, and, you know, bouncing it off the bottom, it looked wounded. She took the opportune moment to inhale it and get her some dinner, although in this case, it was some trickery going on. So nice and fat, a lot of shad in there, and that's why that paid off right there. Chatterbait fishing, effective any time of year, any type of water, salt or fresh. Tie it on, go out there and have fun.
Ready?
Yep.
Well, Jason is definitely adept at fishing the chatterbait. You know, and some folks say that when people fish one lure too much, it can become a crutch. But after hearing Jason talk, I feel like it's more like a hammer. So if you haven't tried a chatterbait yet, or if you pick it up and put it down more often than you cast it and wind it in, you should probably reconsider using the chatterbait as one of your go-to tactics. In fact, a chatterbait's a cold water bait, it's a warm water bait, it's a hot water bait. It's pretty much an any water, anytime kind of bait. But this time of year, they're definitely feeding up for the spawn and or feeding up after the spawn, and the chatterbait will definitely put more fish in the boat. So anyway, thanks Jason for that awesome tip. We'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. Leave a comment in the comment section if you got a question that you'd like me to pose to one of these pros. Just let me know. We'll get one of them on camera, share their insights with you to help make you a better angler.
Great.
Cool.